Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles.
So, since we have so much evidence of people who lived by faith and even died in faith, waiting for the promises to be fulfilled, and yet they still trusted God to be faithful to keep His promises, let us throw off the things that hinder us, depression and anxiety, as well as the sin that entangles us. So we need to strive to put away sin. We never should justify sin. Even though we have forgiveness, we don't sin in order that grace may abound. But you also can't allow sin to destroy you because you believe that God actually forgives you. So there's a balance. You don't just sin as much as you can, but yet you don't have this obligation to feel like you must be sinless in order to be saved. You try not to sin, and when you do, you ask for forgiveness and you try to be better in the future.
And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith.
So He engineers faith and He improves faith. You know, look at how many times the disciples said, "Lord, increase our faith." When Jesus told them something hard, they usually responded with, "Increase our faith." So we're not solely responsible for our faith even. Jesus is the engineer of faith and the perfecter of faith, and He can increase our faith, just like the disciples asked Jesus to do for them. So you can't even claim your faith as your own, because whatever faith you have comes from God or from Jesus.
For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider Him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son? It says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when He rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one He loves, and He chastens everyone He accepts as His son."
So there's another piece of information that should give you hope if you are in hard times. If you feel like God is being hard on you or disciplining you, then you can know that God only disciplines those whom He loves. And He's training your faith and increasing your faith. I've gone through some hard times, and I've been a little bit upset with God, or maybe a lot upset with God, but because I thought He was being too hard on me. But He disciplines those whom He loves, and we do not need to lose heart in hard times.
Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as His children.
So that just says cause a hardship. So you say, are you suffering anything? Job stress, marriage stress, money stress, health stress, whatever stresses you have in life, they're not independent of God's relationship with you. Everything you go through is God walking you through the path and plan that He has for your life. And it says you should consider your hardship as discipline, and consider discipline as something that God does for those He loves. So you can endure hardship with faith and trust and perseverance, knowing that God is good and He loves those whom He chastens.
For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. how much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good in order that we may share in His holiness.
So human fathers can make mistakes. They can actually discipline you the wrong way, to teach you the wrong things. They may discipline you just because they're in a bad mood. But God never makes a mistake. If God ever does anything to discipline you, then it is for your good, and you can trust that 100%.
No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone, and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See that no one is sexually immoral, or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected.
So this seems a little bit harsh, calling Esau godless, but I think the point is Esau was focused on earthly things, physical things. He didn't trust God to feed him or take care of him. He completely gave up his rights as the firstborn for a bowl of soup. Talk about utter example of thinking only on fleshly things and having absolutely no faith in God. So that's why it's so horrible. He said, well, really? I mean, he just gave up his birthright, his firstborn rights, because he was hungry. Yes, that's everybody would say, well, that's bad, but is it really that bad? I think what's so bad about it is that he was completely consumed with fleshly living only. He was not concerned about spiritual matters, and that's what's bad. And we do the same thing today.
Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he had done. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them.
So he's talking about Mount Sinai. And I've watched some videos recently on YouTube, which I've seen it many times for a long time now. But, you know, Ron Wyatt is dead now, but he was an amateur archaeologist who found a lot of biblical artifacts, such as Mount Sinai and Noah's Ark and the crossing of the Red Sea. Things that seem to be absolute evidence of, biblical archaeology that people want to deny. But I watched another video just yesterday about Mount Sinai. They were actually confirming what Ron Wyatt had done. But there is a mountain now in Saudi Arabia on the east side of the Sea of Aqaba, I think it is, the Red Sea, where this mountain is still black on the top because the mountain was burning with fire and smoke where God was, the holy mountain. And it's still black today. There's still the rock, the split rock that brought forth water, and the stream that rolled down, and there's, drawings of calf worship in the same place. It's really interesting. You should look into it.
Because they could not bear what was commanded.
Oh, and also in verse 19 it says, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words. I think that conjures up ideas of the Feast of Trumpets, or what's it called, Rosh Hashanah. I believe that's the origin of the Feast of Trumpets. The blowing of the trumpet was when they initiated the Old Covenant Mosaic Law. and they blew the trumpet every year in remembrance of that time, the establishing of the new law. And that Feast of Trumpets is also what you talk about whenever you read the New Testament. It talks about at the last trumpet will be the second coming of Jesus. Well, that last trumpet was blown probably in 70 A.D. before the temple was destroyed. That's the last time it was effective, because the whole Jewish system was annihilated and obliterated when Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed. So I would think that would be another, I think that is the fulfillment of Rosh Hashanah, the last trumpet when Jesus returned to destroy Jerusalem. Was in 70 A.D. in Jerusalem, right before it was all destroyed.
If even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, "I am trembling with fear." But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly.
Well, that is a drastically different picture, isn't it? When you have Mount Sinai and Moses and the Jews in the wilderness, it was a terrifying sight. People could not stand to be in the presence of God speaking. They said, "Don't let God speak to us anymore because it terrifies us to death." So Moses did all the speaking to God. The mountain burning with fire and all the sights that they saw were obviously fearful. Struck fear in the hearts of everybody who saw it. They couldn't stand it. But yet, so that's a picture of the Old Covenant. It's fear of punishment, fear of destruction. But it says, "But we have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, heavenly Jerusalem." It's in a joyful assembly where the angels are praising God.
To the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven.
Okay, so I believe our names are written in heaven really before we're even born. It's predestination. God calls out those whom He chooses and elects. Their names are written down, and He bestows mercy and grace on those, and they are saved. I know a lot of people, and the people that I'm most closely associated with think that is highly offensive to think of predestination in that way. But I believe that's really what the Bible teaches.
You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? At that time...
All right, so let me see if I can figure this out. Don't refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less if we would turn away from him who warns us from heaven. I don't know what that's talking about. What is this escaping those who refused him on earth? Refused him who warned them on earth. Is that Noah? Noah warned people, but they refused Noah, and then they died. But there's no mention of Noah just above there. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, thinking about something wrong. I welcome your comments there. Help me out.
His voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. The words, once more, indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful, and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire.
All right, so I think it's interesting. Verse 28 says, therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Now, all the way back in Daniel, you have the dream, Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue with a head of gold and feet of iron and clay. And the rock that is cut out without hands that rolls down and completely destroys the kingdoms. Those four kingdoms being Roman, Medo-Persian, Greek, Babylonian, Medo-Persian, Greek, and Roman. And then in the time of the Roman Empire, you have the establishment of the eternal kingdom that cannot be shaken. That's the church. That's the Christian age. The doing away of the Jewish system and the establishing of the Christian system. But it says we are receiving a kingdom. That's a present tense that they are in the process of currently receiving it at the time that the book of Hebrews is written. It was written after 30 AD and before 70 AD. That's the transition period between when Jesus started the new age by his ministry, his death, burial, and resurrection, and ascension, and his consummation when he put away the Jewish system and he married the Christian system. The wedding feast was at 70 AD when he put away the Jews and he married the church. And from that time on, and that's since Hebrews is written, but between 30 and 70 AD, he has to say, we are in the process of receiving the kingdom that cannot be shaken. It has not been fully established yet, fully consummated, because there is still the Jewish system that stands in the way. He had to get rid of the Jewish system to establish the new relationship, the new covenant as Christians. And there we have Hebrews chapter 12.